What happened in New Orleans on New Year's is pure evil. We pray that the God of comfort will comfort those families whose lives have just been shattered. The system in the U.S. failed to protect Americans, and the media is failing to tell us why. First, let me give you the facts, because they matter. Then we'll discuss the media telling you a story, not the story. In the early hours of New Year's Day, approximately 3:15 a.m., 42-year-old Shamsud-Din Jabbar swerved around makeshift barriers in the French Quarter and plowed right through a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing 15 people and injuring dozens more. Listen to some of the chaotic calls from first responders.
92 squad, we got a white on, I need EMS to Canal and Bourbon now. Canal and Bourbon now, possible 20F. Dozens of people were dying in this car.
I got at least maybe 12 to 15 people hit by this vehicle. On Bourbon Street.
Jabbar, a U.S. Army veteran from Texas, got out of the vehicle and opened fire on responding officers. He was killed in the ensuing shootout. 2 police officers were wounded there in stable condition. The white Ford F-150 pickup truck Jabbar rented through the Turo app was carrying an ISIS flag on the trailer hitch. Inside the vehicle, authorities discovered multiple weapons and what appeared to be improvised explosive devices. Additional IEDs were later found in the French Quarter. In the first moments after the tragedy, the FBI said this.
This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found.
Not terrorism? The FBI photographed the ISIS flag Jabbar was carrying. Investigators knew Jabbar drove right through a crowd, traded gunfire with police, and had explosive devices. Later, the FBI changed its position. But why did the FBI put out misleading information? When did the FBI's job shift from catching the bad guys to managing public perception? We're living in a bizarre world where telling the truth takes a backseat to narrative, where protecting feelings matters more than protecting lives. Here's Jabbar introducing himself as a real estate property manager.
So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist.
President Biden read a 4-minute prepared speech from Camp David saying no one should jump to conclusions.
The law enforcement and intelligence community are continuing to look for any connections, associations, or co-conspirators. We have nothing additional to report at this time. The investigation is continuing to be active, and no one should jump to conclusions.
So here's what we know. Jabbar was a U.S. Army veteran who converted to Islam, hosted ISIS propaganda, was able to acquire weapons and explosives, and plan and execute a major attack without raising any serious red flags. What a massive security failure. Hours after the New Orleans attack, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing 1 person and injuring 7 others. That vehicle was also rented through Turo, leading investigators to examine a possible connection between the 2 crime scenes. The legacy media has been focused on Jabbar's struggle to adjust to civilian life, his financial troubles, his failed marriages. The headlines from the left are absurd, even blaming the vehicle for the casualties in New Orleans. They're tiptoeing around the elephant in the room. If this attack was ISIS-inspired, and ISIS is inspired by radical Islam, then we need to have an honest conversation about the deeper problem. America's enemies are already within the gates. ISIS is just one of hundreds of terror groups across the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. With the porous U.S. border and radical Muslim ideology and theology spreading and jihadi hubs forming, how many more Jabbars are there? How many more attacks are we inviting with willful blindness? If we can't name the ideology behind these attacks, if we can't discuss the role of radical Islam without being called a bigot, if we can't secure our borders without being called racist, then we're failing to solve the problem. We're enabling it. That's what happens when the government is more worried about how the story sounds than how many lives it costs. President Trump takes the oath of office on January 20th. He released a statement calling the terror attack exactly what it is, an act of pure evil. If we don't secure the border and strengthen our intelligence capabilities, we're going to see more attacks, more incidents, more lone wolves, more of everything except the truth. Friends, Jesus told us that if we know the truth will set us free. That's especially true about knowing Him, but it's also a spiritual law that is relevant to this conversation. If we don't first recognize the truth and act, we'll find ourselves fighting a falsehood and defeating a false flag, a fake enemy that leaves the real enemy waiting for the next moment to attack. Reporting from Israel for the Real Life Network, I'm Daniel Cohen.